Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ball Caps and Bagpipes, Scottish Baseball Podcast. I am the Glasgow Comet's John McKellar.
And I'm former league president and Baseball Scotland Hall of Famer Jason Durr.
Indeed you are, Jason. We are here tonight to present a very special episode. It's a bonus episode with one of my teammates, Chris Kelly. Thank you so very much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you on, man. Tonight we're going to talk about Three Strikes and You're Out, which is a 12 or so minute long documentary that you put together from how many hours was it of total footage you had?
I believe the first cut was about 3 or 4 hours, yeah.
So you
but in total there was about 10 hours, including B-roll and stuff.
Absolutely insane. We're going to talk about the process of getting those 10 or so hours down to the 12 minutes that are on YouTube now. We'll talk into how that project began and where you expect to go from there. Before we get into that, however, let's talk about your interest in baseball. Where did that begin?
Sure. Well, I think my story is going to be pretty similar to most people in Scotland. Late night, channel hopping, you come across Channel 5 and there's some baseball getting hosted by Jonathan Gould, I believe it was. So you're talking about the year 2000. I think the first proper game I properly watched was the World Series, the Mets and the Yankees. And I basically just decided, hey, the Mets are clearly the underdogs here. They're going to be my team. And that was me saddled with them forevermore. Fast forward about 15 years, I'd been watching baseball kind of on and off, and just randomly one day decided to Google it. Facebook, Baseball Scotland, and came across a GBA, and that's how we got here.
So you've been a Mets fan since around 2000, you said. What are some of your favourite Mets memories?
Don't have very many good ones, to be honest. The players, David Wright, Ike Davis, Jose Reyes, Ari Dickey, all the pictures, we've had great players. We might not have done much as a team in the time that I've been watching, but the players have been the one that stand out.
Absolutely, yeah. The Mets have put together quite a machine in the last year or two. Obviously, adding Max Scherzer as well puts them into the kind of upper echelon. How do you fancy the Mets to do this year, assuming we get a baseball season in?
Surprisingly, they seem pretty high up in terms of like the odds and that. I think we've been really good at pitching in recent years. It's just we need to get the bats in. And strangely enough, when we're kind of COVID riddled at the start of last year, and we're bringing up not even our second tier batters, but we're bringing up like our third tier batters, and they were going on a rampage. They were doing really good. And when our starting players came back, we slumped. So I don't know what that says, but I think it says something.
Isn't it just the way sometimes?
Yeah.
So you've become a member of the Glasgow Comets around 2015 or so. That would be. Talk to us about how you became a Comet and what your favourite memories of this club are.
Sure. So I'd actually been kind of hanging about in training for most of the 2015 season, but I didn't actually play until 2016. I know you're quite the historian on Scottish baseball, so I actually looked up just before the show. And my debut was on April the 10th, 2016. Galaxy against the Comets. By the looks of things, we're going to be getting mercy drilled and had a bit of a comeback. Although we went on to lose the game, we showed that Comet spirit that we've had the time that I've been here. Unfortunately, it turns out that I ground out as the second last out of the game, which I think sums up my own career pretty well.
Well, that and the hit by pitches. Which was a bit of a tendency you inherited from me, bizarrely. I used to get hit by pitches pretty much constantly until you came along, and I don't think I've been hit by one since.
Yeah, I think I went a whole season where I got hit by every pitcher in the week, which was interesting.
There's got to be some kind of record.
Like I said, you got to get some sort of recognition. So if it's being hit by every pitch in the league, that's a pretty good one to go by.
I need that award to go up on the wall,
I think it's just a giant plaster you're gonna put.
You wear it like a title belt around your waist. It's a big bandage. Talk to us about the other aspect that we're going to be talking about tonight. Your interest in film. I know that you are primarily interested in film editing. How did you become so interested in it that you wanted to pursue it in your studies and as a career? And where are you at in terms of like your studies in that particular realm at the moment?
Sure. It's a bit of an interesting question. I don't know. I suppose I've just always been into editing, which I know is a bit of a kind of cliche answer, but there wasn't really any point in time where I kind of realised, oh, I'm watching these movies and I'm paying attention to the editing and how the scenes are going together. It just always seemed natural. I just assumed that's how everybody watched movies, In terms of when I thought it could be a career, a few years ago, I was working. I'd been in the same job for 15 years ever since I'd left school, and it was just getting a bit monotonous, And suddenly the penny dropped. Hey, people get paid to edit movies, There is actually jobs out there. It is actually a thing that people can do. Growing up in kind of small towns in Scotland, sometimes you think these things are like Hollywood things. They don't really exist for like guys like us. And I just decided I'm going to start taking steps to move into this career. Done a couple of night courses, done some acting classes, and 2 years ago quit my job just before a global pandemic, which is fantastic, and started studying an HND. I'm now in my second year of that, and hopefully go on to university after the summer.
Fantastic. Now we've got a couple of comments in early,
All right.
from one from YouTube and one from a brand new Twitch page, which, as you can tell, if you're on any of those,
probably explain this first. So yes, obviously we've got a new streaming platform this year, so we can see the comments. Chris can't see the comments, and we'll add the comments. So if you have any questions for Chris, and we'll pop one up right now to give you an example to see when you get a comment, we'll put it up there, guys. So yeah, so we see that you guys are watching. We're happy you're there, and we'll test out the first one here. Here's your first question so far.
Are you even watching a movie if you don't obsess over it? Dead of the Sean.
That is correct, Sean. Absolutely. Everybody should. If you enjoy a movie, you should be obsessing over it. You should be watching it 100 times a day. You shouldn't just be I shouldn't be the only weirdo that does things like that.
For me, it's historical accuracy in films. When I'm watching a film, I'm looking at historical accuracy. I'm just like, that TV never came out that year. It came out like 3 years later.
Yeah, or they're wearing a watch in like the 1600s and stuff like that.
Yeah. Why is that guy skateboarding in like the 1700s? This is bizarre. So let's talk about the documentary itself.
Sure.
On the 2nd of January, you released Three Strikes and You're Out. As we've mentioned, it's just a 12-minute long short documentary about baseball Scotland. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the film itself, what inspired you to create the film? And where did the concept come from?
Sure. So obviously I love making films, and I'm doing this course, and I love the Scottish Baseball League. So I had already been thinking about ways that I could combine the two, whether that was like contacting Paul and making like adverts or videos to try and promote the league a bit more. And it just so happened to be that when I started the second year of my course, one of the first projects we got assigned was to do a documentary on contemporary life in Scotland. And I was like, baseball, that's part of contemporary Scotland and not a lot of people know about, that could be pretty good. However, as I read on further, there was a couple of things. One, the documentary had to be maximum 10 minutes, which we kind of expanded to 12. And it was to be filmed across October and November, which, there is no baseball in Scotland in October and November. So it was just pretty coincidental that I was planning on doing something anyway to do with filming and baseball in Scotland, and then I get handed this project, and it just seemed like the perfect fit.
Amazing. So talk about the preparation that goes into this particular type of project. Tell us about preparing for, first off, logistics. You have to travel, and if anyone who's seen the documentary will know that you traveled quite a fair bit. You went to various ballparks. You even visited a couple of the people who were featured in their own homes. Talk to us about the logistics of it, the planning, the equipment that you used.
Sure. So logistically, planning and all that, I had to submit a proposal because essentially this was being treated as you're being given a £10,000 budget. How are you going to spend it? Unfortunately, it's not real £10,000. So as much as I just wanted to go ahead and film everybody and everyone everywhere in Scotland, I had to put in a feasibility proposal, which luckily got accepted. In terms of like the nitty gritty of like what cameras we're going to use and how we're going to go about and film it, right down to the last minute, it was constantly changing. The original plan was I was going to sit down with 3 players and interview them. And being that there wouldn't be any games in October, I was thinking I can maybe get some people out to the field, brave the cold, and film it cinematically rather than realistically. So to kind of prepare for that, while the semi-finals of the Cup was going on in Edinburgh, I took a camera over and filmed the 2 games. There's some highlights of it on my YouTube channel. And that turned out to be pretty lucky because I ended up using some of that footage in the documentary. That was originally just meant to be a camera test, but ended up getting used. I'd penciled in the 10th of October to rent out some cameras from college and film the cinematic outdoor shoots. And as I was getting ready to try and convince people to come out and play in the cold, it got announced that the Glasgow derby between Galaxy and Comets was going to get played on the 10th of October. So that meant the plans had to change. I was then going to have to cover the game while trying to interview people in between the game. So, as you know, when we swap over every half inning, when the batters take the field and the fielders go up to bat, you've got maybe a minute or 2 of turnaround time. And I was basically just going to have to just grab people and interview them in between that. 2 people on my course came with me with cameras. Shout out to Sean and Lewis. Thanks for all your help. Not only had they never filmed baseball before, I don't think they'd ever seen a game before. But I think you'll agree they managed to get some really good footage. So basically, the plan was they 2 would take 2 cameras, film as much of the game, cover as much as possible, and I'd try and interview people in between half innings and kind of see how it goes. So that was the main shooting day. And as you see in the documentary, I managed to get a good 6-7 people to talk about various aspects of baseball in Scotland, but it wouldn't have been enough to like really do it justice, I don't think. So I managed to secure the cameras for another 3 days the following weekend, and basically just put the feelers out to try and get as many people as possible to sit down in their house and do an interview. So that involved travelling up to Tayport on the Friday, interviewing Jason West, which was fantastic. What a great interview, what a great guy. Could have easily done an hour-long documentary on him and the Tayport Breakers alone, you know. So that was great getting up there. On the Saturday, I myself went to Andy's house to interview him, and then luckily Ali Hay stays kind of around the corner from him. But even with them staying so close together, I mean, I was doing that myself, so I was setting up the cameras, setting up the sound, setting up the lighting. It's a really, really long day doing that. And then the next day I got up, went to Saeed's house, and then in the afternoon of the Sunday, came round to your house, John, interviewed you.
Yep.
And that ended perhaps the busiest weekend of my life, to be honest. I'm not sure that I ate at all that weekend. It was just location, you know. So that was the practicalities of the shoot.
Amazing.
I was going to say, how much equipment did you have to lug around with you? I mean, we're talking like 2 suitcases full.
So we're talking on the outdoor shoots, there was 3 cameras. There was, I think, 2 or 3 microphones running at all times, and I had 2 lights with me as well for the indoor shoots. So yeah, a lot of equipment. I think almost everybody remarked when I turned up at the door and chapped the door, they were expecting just, you know, me and a camera, and here I'm walking in like 2 bags worth of equipment.
And I'm assuming the cameras aren't small ones either. They're not the your digital cameras that you just pick up at Curry's. You know, you actually have proper equipment to go do this.
Well, no, surprisingly, the digital cameras are actually really good nowadays. Like the 2 Canons that we were getting to use. So thankfully they weren't too big, you know. But they still come with their lenses and their tripods and all the different bits of equipment that comes with them. but yeah, it was a lot.
Now, talk to me about the questions that you asked to the different guests. You know, you've mentioned how last minute some of the aspects of the shoot were. Were they locked in pretty early on, or was there a wee bit of kind of like adapting as you went along, depending on sort of what answers you got at the field?
Sure. Well, a bit of both, to be honest. There was some set questions that I definitely wanted to talk about, some topics of discussion that I wanted to be kind of uniform, like throughout it, but it was also reacting to what was being said. So as well as setting up the equipment and monitoring and all that, I also had to do the interviews, you know, had to be receptive to the answers and kind of bounce off what was getting said. Frustratingly, some of the more interesting topics kind of came up towards the end, and I wished I could have went back and asked everybody it. Like when Ali was talking about like the kids that came up and asked for these autographs, which I think you agree is definitely one of the highlights of the documentary. Everybody that I've watched it with in person just went, "Oh," to that, you know, perfect. But he was late on in the Saturday that I'd interviewed, so I'd already interviewed quite a lot of people at the field and interviewed Andy before it, and I was like, "Oh, I wish, you know, I could like ask that question again, you know, to everybody." But yeah, no, there was a mixture. There was some set questions I had, and then there was some real spontaneous responses. Yeah.
Well, it's not too late to ask John the question now.
Has anybody asked for your autograph, John?
Not on the baseball field, and not sober. What was the most surprising aspect of the game in Scotland that you might have potentially learned about during the filming of the documentary?
The most surprising aspect. Well, I'll tell you something that did surprise me, right? Here's a little behind the scenes thing. On the day of filming outdoors, I'd said to Sean and Lewis, the camera operators, I said, you need to get a lot of footage of them setting up the field. You have to get footage of us dragging those big green bins up the hill, getting out the netting that we have to put up, hammering the stakes in the cold, hard ground. You know, you have to get all this footage because I'm going to ask them, what's the worst thing about playing baseball in Scotland? And every single one is going to say setting up the field. And you know, not a single person did.
Almost everybody said the weather, I believe.
Yeah, which, you know, it's pretty good. I think that's a pretty good segment, the weather. I did really like it. But yeah, not a single person mentioned the field. And I had all on this B-roll, and I didn't really have like anywhere to use it. So yeah, that surprised me. It turns out I must be the only one that really despises putting up my fence every week.
I mean, I don't know what I said when you asked that question, but I certainly don't like setting up the field. I would probably put that ahead of the weather. I don't know if it's maybe just a Scottish players thing where being Scottish, you just kind of have to live with the weather regardless. I can see why someone coming over from maybe like the Midwest or the South or the California or somewhere like that in the United States, where it's maybe a bit warmer, or even from mainland Europe or from Dominican Republic or what have you. I can see why they would maybe say the weather because they're not used to it. But surely by now, like any of us Scottish guys is probably well used to the piss and rain by this point.
Nope, turns out we all hate it. Although I have to say it was a blessing in disguise because some of those reactions to folks saying the weather were just perfect. That was actually the first sequence I put together when I started editing it. The weather sequence, like that was locked in from day one, you know.
Let's talk more in depth about the editing process. You've brought it down obviously from 10 hours to an original cut of 3 to 4 hours, down to 12 minutes. Now that's that's a gargantuan effort that's required for that kind of work. How long did it take you to first off create that first cut?
The first cut, like the 3 to 4 hours cut.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll be perfectly honest. All the days have kind of blended together. I do have it written down in a diary somewhere, but it might take me a while to find that. There was certain points where you were getting that can't see the forest for the trees feeling, where you're just cutting and cutting and cutting. There was some real heartache. There's a term it's called, I think, killing your children, where you become very attached to a bit of a project that you've been working on, and you just have to delete it and forget it existed. There was stuff in the original cut of the documentary about the umpire clinic that was ran, which I think, it's definitely a good thing to highlight. I wanted to show that there was other stuff that people could get involved in. Maybe people want to get involved in Scottish baseball, but they don't necessarily want to play. We need umpires. We need people to officiate the game. There's roles there. I really, really wanted to include that in the documentary, and it had to get cut wholesale. There's stuff where we're discussing social media, things like this podcast, and just all the teams kind of having their own social media now, and growing the sport through that aspect. I really wanted to include. It had to get cut wholesale. So yeah, there's been a lot of heartache. But in terms of how long did it take? Well, let's see. Finished filming, I think, on the 17th of October, and I uploaded the video on the 2nd of January. So there was edits right down to the last second.
I think you mentioned to me ahead of time that there was a slight font change or something like that in between, like when you had previewed it to me and when it was being released.
Yeah. That was some feedback from my tutors and some people in the class. Fonts aren't really my forte that much, and I designed a logo that I thought was fantastic, and almost everybody unanimously said, "No, that's not correct." But nobody's complained about the font since it's been put up on YouTube, so I can only assume they're good now. But yeah, that was definitely a humbling moment when I'd spent many hours in Photoshop, sat back, hands across my head going, "That's perfect, what a great job I've done there," and then showed it to other people and was like, "Nah, mate, doesn't work."
Yeah, that reminds me a couple of months ago when I kind of went to Jason with like an idea for a new logo for ball caps and bagpipes. I was like, we should probably get like a refresh of the branding. And then Jason comes back to me like, I got someone who like knows this sort of shit to look at it, and was like, the original one's fine. Like, you don't need to change it to that. That's just daft. Why would you change that?
That's the thing. I mean, you know what you know, and other people are experts in other things, so it's good to collaborate with other people, and get feedback.
Let's talk some more about that, actually. You mentioned collaborating, and you've mentioned your two camera operatives. Were they involved to much extent in the rest of the process? Were they involved in the editing, or was it just you yourself in a dark room somewhere?
No, I mean, the actual physical task of the editing was definitely just me, myself, in a dark room. But, I've definitely bounced ideas off and bounced ideas off everybody else in the class. It's a really good class that I'm in. Like, we're all supportive and ready to view each other's like first drafts and give feedback, and it's very useful. Sometimes when you show like your friends and your family something, they just want to please you. They just, "That's a great job you've done. That's fantastic," and they might be sitting thinking, "Oh, I've noticed something, but it's probably just me." But you need people to tell you, "I've noticed something. That doesn't work. That doesn't work." So, no, there's been a lot of back and forth. Right? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And refining it down to where it is now. Yeah.
Staying with editing, we've mentioned obviously bits that you had to cut out. Were there any parts of the documentary that when you began the process of editing that you thought, right, that's probably not going to survive, but that as you went along became indispensable? We've talked about the weather thing, but anything beyond that you went in thinking, yeah, that's probably expendable footage, and then by the end of it, it's ended up being crucial?
Maybe not crucial, but well, yeah, I suppose in a way there was a whole bit where. So originally, the way my documentary started, I'm a big believer in like the rule of threes when you're telling stories or just doing anything. Like having 3 beats is usually pretty good. So one of the later cuts of the documentary started off with like Andy had a little voiceover bit, and then Fiona had a little voiceover bit, and then Danny had a little voiceover bit, and then it was the intro of Elvis throwing the pitch. And, there was a bit of feedback that didn't really work. It doesn't really get into it quick enough, blah, blah, blah. So the way it is now with Jason talking over the intro, saying about how the only people that play baseball in Scotland are people that are really passionate about the sport, and that's what makes it pure. maybe sounds a little bit weird taken out of context, but that was from a longer bit where he was talking about how the sport and like America and that can get like muddied by like politics and things like that. So I really wanted to keep the whole original thing that he talked about because I thought it was like really interesting, his perspective. But I needed something that just fit that logo as like an opening, bam, you're in the documentary. So it ended up getting moved across to that. And then the rest of his conversation then had to go because it was missing the ending. So yeah, there was a lot of reshuffling like that.
So I know we talked about killing your children, and we don't want to pick a favourite child, but do you have a favourite scene of the documentary?
Oh, that is tough.
Mine is easy. It's Andy's scenes for me are the best ones, and for me the best part is the the travel graphic.
Traveling up the mass, yeah. So I'll expose myself a little bit in that one before I answer your question. Right, we'll need to go back to that question. So that map, right? I created like each individual bit on that map. So see how there's like a line like joining Glasgow to Aberdeen and Tayport, whatever. So I created each individual bit. And because I've done a lot of animation last year because of the lockdown, I had to learn a lot of animation. I've done an animated music video, which had a lot of moving parts, and I'm used to going frame by frame. The travel graphic for the one, cheers, Sean. So I'm quite used to going frame by frame. I'm quite happy enough sitting for 6 hours to get like 2 minutes of footage or whatever, right? So I sat and made every little tiny bit of that map, and because it zooms out, I had to go frame by frame and make every tiny bit zoom out in relation to the bits around it. Blah blah blah. I get really caught up in it. I was like zoned in. I was in the zone. It was fantastic, and I think about 3 or 4 hours passed from when I started it to when I finished it, and it was good. It was seamless. I'll blow my own horn. I think you cannot tell I made each individual part.
Absolutely.
I literally walked down the stairs, poured myself a cup of juice, walked back up the stairs, sat down and wait. I could have just made that a picture and just zoomed the picture out and done in 5 minutes.
And now there's going to be somebody who's obsessing over the documentary who's going to get in touch with you and say, "Oh, Edinburgh's slightly off."
Slightly off, I know. But yeah, I'll give you that one for free. That was a daft mistake, but I'm happy with the end result. You know, it's fine. Yeah. So you're basically asking what was my favorite scene. I really do like Ali's story about the
Absolutely.
about the kid and asking for the autograph. And I thought that was fantastic, and I'd never heard that before. Like I genuinely like forgot I was interviewing him when he like told me that. I didn't say anything. I was just staring at him like, oh, that's fantastic, mate. Like that's really good. But I also really liked the bit with Fiona talking about getting more women into the sport, and I really liked your kind of taking that as well, John, when you were mentioning Aberdeen and everything that they're doing. I was quite sad that I couldn't get somebody from Aberdeen in the documentary, and it was time. I mean, I've just described to you like how much I was flying around that weekend, you know. So I was really glad that you mentioned them and gave them a shout out because you know, I think they've done a lot to include all genders in the sport, and anytime I've went up to Aberdeen's been a great time. I think what they've done up there has been fantastic, building up a team and even having 2 teams at one point, you know. So I'm glad they get a mention. So I'd say quite specifically, my favourite part was you mentioning them, Aberdeen, because it was important that everybody, as far as possible, get included in this, you know.
Was that a challenge when you were setting out the kind of plan to balance it out and not make it be so Glasgow centric? Obviously, the bulk of the filming took place at our field in Glasgow. There's obviously you've managed to use archived footage of Edinburgh as well from the semi-finals of the Cup, and obviously you were able to travel up to Tayport. What was your approach to making sure there was as much balance as possible?
So I'll be honest, right up to the last minute, it was a coin flip for me as to what direction I was going to go. Whether I was going to kind of treat this as a template and just focus on the Glasgow Comets and then do a longer documentary on like the whole week. But basically when it was announced that it was going to be a a Glasgow Derby game. I was like, right, excellent. I can get Comets and Galaxy involved, and we can maybe just make it about Glasgow and then expand out. Then when I managed to get a hold of Jason and he agreed to do an interview, I was like, right, I really need to try and get as much of the league involved as possible. And it just so happened to be that Saeed stays pretty close to me, and I'm friends with him. He was happy to interview, and that at least got somebody from an Edinburgh point of view involved as well. And like I say, just unfortunately we couldn't get Aberdeen, but that was like kind of almost that week between filming the game and then filming the interviews was when it was kind of decided, right, I'm going to try and get as much of the league involved as possible. Yeah.
Is there anything that you specifically regret not getting other than obviously more of Aberdeen? Is there anything that you had set out to get that you just didn't get, like a white whale of sorts?
Well, there's kind of two regrets, but we can maybe follow up in a future project or something. But certainly, I would have liked to have had more time interviewing Fiona and getting more of her perspective on the league. And I also really wanted to use this as kind of selfishly as well, but kind of explore the history of the league a bit more. Because I feel like when I started turning up about 2015, started playing about 2016, I feel like there'd already been a good few years of like development, and then beyond that, there's more historical stuff that I don't know anything about. So I was looking forward to sitting down with like yourself, and I was trying to get Jason Stott as well, and try and talk to him about like when he was playing it in his younger years and things like that. And just I couldn't get anything like that scheduled, so. But then again, maybe a documentary would have been about 2 hours. Maybe we need to do just a history of Scottish baseball documentary at some point. That'd be my two things. Getting to spend more time interviewing Fiona and getting to talk about the history of the league a bit further were two things I kind of wanted that I didn't get. So.
That means you're going to have to sit down with Wolfie and have a long interview with Wolfie, and that will give you about 60 years of Scottish baseball all at once.
I honestly see at one point when I was trying to tie down who to interview and whose house could we get around it, I was like, my mind was going everywhere. I was like, right, umpires, I need to interview umpires,
You've alluded to possible future projects. Is this an avenue that you absolutely would like to go down again? Can we expect to see more documentary footage from yourself? Is there going to be a release of a longer cut of Three Strikes?
Of course you would ask about the Kelly cut. You've been asking for that cut before we even finished your interview, John.
He's asking his own version of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, right from the very start, right from like when I first proposed this, I kind of thought about doing a longer version just for myself, but I'll be honest, it's so time consuming. And part of me is kind of like, I could go back to the footage and I could get a half hour, 45-minute long cut of what we have, or we could just use that time to do it again, make a different documentary.
Mm-hmm.
There's no concrete plans, but I mean, I'm all ears. If there's ideas, if there's collaborations out there, and if I get the time and the resources to do it, like I'm more than happy to do whatever I can to help promote the league, get us more players, keep us going, keep us growing.
You've mentioned growing the league and getting more attention on the league. You've had the experience a couple of times already now of putting together highlight packages of games. Is that something you would like to travel around the league and do a bit more of? Or are you going to be more focused on your playing side of things for the time being?
Again, that's so tough.
I guess that can branch into a totally separate question of like what way are you being pulled more at this stage? Do you want to play more than you want to film, or what's the?
Well, that's the thing. I think certainly for this season, I probably want to be focusing on my playing time. I missed out in the season just before COVID. Just personally, just took a break for I think the whole season, if not the majority of it. And I was geared up to come back like the week before the very first lockdown. I was on the field. I had the equipment out. I was ready. I was buzzing. And then we got shut down like the next day or something like that. So missing out on that season meant, I really wanted to be there every week last season. I wanted to try and get extra training on the go, get as much out of it as we can. and with the developmental / single A league that we had, and hearing Paul talk on your podcast about the plans for expanding that further this season, I think I want to kind of like get involved in the playing side of it as much as possible this year. So, I don't really think I could spend my Sundays traveling around watching other games, filming other games, and then miss out on playing the games myself. Not this year, but it's certainly definitely a thought for the future. But if there's a specific project, if there's a specific game or something, then taking a week off here or there, I would be all for that. Yeah.
Amazing, man.
But
we've got this comment from Dead of the Sean. The Kelly cut, there's your baseball horror movie title right there. Yeah, Dead of the Sean had said we need a Scottish baseball horror movie.
Well, yeah, again, if somebody has an idea, I'll sit down. We can make a script. We can make something happen. I don't know. Running about pretending to batter folk with a baseball bat and toe cross might not be the greatest idea, but maybe we can get the right permissions. I know the paperwork and stuff that we need.
That could attract the wrong attention, let's say, or feel
I did see out the corner of my eye that Sean had mentioned. He really liked the ball rolling into the frame. I'm glad you liked that, Sean, because let me tell you, I did take one of the camera operators, also called Sean, up to Tayport with me to film, which was lovely of him to come up and take that journey. However, I kind of tortured him with wanting to get that shot of the ball rolling into the frame, and I think that was about take 40 or 41 or something like that. But I was determined. We were getting that shot.
Kubrick, did you?
We were getting that shot, and even if it doesn't fit, it's going in the documentary. Like somewhere, I'm putting that shot in.
Amazing. So if you want to watch a Scottish baseball horror movie, come and film the Old Timers game, and then obviously Paul Convoy, as we can see, American Werewolf in Edinburgh.
Brilliant.
So we've got a working title now. Now we just need a script.
Yeah. We have a real life werewolf in Edinburgh, Wolfie.
Yeah, exactly. American Wolfie in Edinburgh.
Have a film with Wolfie as like a Jason Voorhees type unkillable bad guy.
Cool. All right. So not all the Facebook comments are showing up there. So it's glad to see Paul showed up there. But we've had a shout from Stephen Loudon, our biggest fan out there. Stevie, good to see you there. He said the film was okay, but it only scratched the surface as far as Glasgow baseball. Well done. Mickey is always another fan there. Said the film was brilliant. A great way to promote baseball in Scotland, the league as a whole. Great job, Chris. And Steven's saying it's looking good for the league, and definitely you should play next year. So, and Mickey's also saying that we need a all or nothing Amazon Prime documentary style film next season,
or a docu-series like Netflix with the same music every episode, the same kind of progression that every Netflix series takes.
That's what I was going to touch on when you'd asked about playing or filming. It has been suggested a few times that people would really like to see like a whole season of a team. How do they go from start to finish? Just try to think how to balance that if you're playing at the same time. But that is something that has been suggested.
Is that something that you think you could feasibly do if you come along to Comet games with some form of equipment?
Potentially. I'd need to sit down and give it some proper thought before the season starts. But potentially, if anybody has practical ideas and how that could be produced, I'm here. Like, talk to me.
So we'll chat off air because I got some ideas that I'm going to go over there and it might help us along there and it'll work out. So. A couple more comments here because again, for some reason Facebook is not working other than Paul. So Paul's is working. So everyone Paul's is going to comment.
I'll take over.
So Stephen Evans says we need to get more Aberdeen in the next film. Fiona Rambley said hopefully we get more women interviews as well. Great podcast, thanks guys. And Stephen Evans said watch it with my little girl back at home on her 55-inch TV big screen event. Haha. So yeah. So you've got some people around the world watching, at least in back in the States. So
good. I will say shout out to the I don't know exactly how many, because YouTube's a bit funny with its numbers, but I think there's about 30, maybe even as much as 40 people watching it live with us in the premiere. And especially to the folk that sent me photos of you with it on the TV, beer or water or whatever in hand. That was much appreciated. That definitely made the months of work feel worthwhile, knowing everybody was watching it at the same time. You know, it's great. Felt like a little event.
That's amazing, man. Let's dive back into playing a wee bit.
Sure.
Obviously, we, as far as we're aware, we will have a 2022 season in some form. Hopefully, a full season. That's going to be probably decided between the AGM and the opening day, with the way things still are at the moment. What are your personal goals for this season and beyond from a playing standpoint, and what do you want to see from the Comets in the next year or two?
From the Comets, win the league. Win both the leagues. You know, I think a few years ago that would have been maybe laughed out a little bit, but, you know, we're there, you know. We're definitely there. We definitely have the capabilities. From a personal standpoint, just getting more hits. I've never been the biggest hitter, to be honest. I kind of focus more on my fielding, to be honest. But I felt like in training last year, I was hitting pretty well, the BP. Just unfortunately, you know, playing mostly in the single A games, I think, contributed to not really getting a lot of hits in the games. So, you know, this season, I'd like to kind of focus on that and hopefully get some hits in some big games. Would be good.
Amazing. And I'm with you. Hopefully the Comets will see some kind of league silverware for the first time ever this coming season, or within the next couple. What was it Andy said? Was it the next 3 years? Andy said he expected us to win the league.
Let's make that one.
I love the passion. So, as you know, guys, I love a quiz. And I would like to test your Mets knowledge, if you don't mind, Chris.
Oh, no.
Is the answer 86 Mets? Every answer is 86 Mets.
I'll ask you 5 questions, and I'm just going to pick them at random for this website that I've found, and we'll see how many you can get right.
Random.
Yeah.
Jesus. I'm going to predict I'm going to get 0, just setting the tone here.
I mean, come on. You can feel free to grab a Yankee quiz and get your own back if you want. But your first question...
I'd involve reading about the Yankees.
Well... Which Hall of Fame pitcher began his career with the New York Mets and went on to rack up over 5,000 strikeouts? Your answers are Nolan Ryan, Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, and Sandy Koufax.
What was the options again?
Nolan Ryan, Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, Sandy Koufax.
Why is it Tom Seaver? Tom Seaver should be in there. Come on.
So the answer is Nolan Ryan. He debuted with the New York Mets on September 11th, 1966.
I'm going to throw wrong answers at you.
I remember it now. I was there.
So we've got one of our friends of the podcast, Donna's asking, have you ever been to Citi Field?
I have not been to Citi Field. Unfortunately, I've only been to an American baseball stadium twice in my life. Both times was at the Diamondbacks, but I only saw one game. The second time I went was for the WWE Royal Rumble, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But that's the only stadium I visited, yeah.
That was the year that Becky Lynch was tapped out in the middle of the ring by Asuka in the opening match. And then, contrary to all logic, went in and won the Rumble.
Yep.
Way to build a wrestler. That's how you push someone. Have them
great logic
in the middle of the ring. I don't have any more questions at the moment, Jason. Do you have anything else you want to touch on?
We get another comment from Andrew Sweeney. He said Chris's double against the Galaxy is still one of my favorite baseball moments. I had a great view of it too from the opposite field. So,
thanks, Andy.
I think you've answered most of it. I was going to say, you had 10 hours of footage and you got it down to 12 minutes. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's the one kind of thing that is kind of impossible to improve, but that I would like to have improved was like the pacing and giving Ivan a bit more breathing room. As a bit of a breakneck speed.
Realistic Kelly cut.
But yeah, we had to work to that deadline, and I did want to put as much in as possible, promote the league as much as possible, get as many teams and players mentioned as possible. And you know what? See if we went too fast for you, watch again. watch it a few more times. It's not going anywhere.
We keep fighting over this. One more question, and we can wrap it up here. What is your favorite baseball movie, and why is it Major League?
My favorite baseball movie.
Yeah,
geez.
since you like your movies, you can pick two. So if that's a tough one for you.
That is a really tough one, especially because I've watched quite a lot recently, so I've got a lot of recency bias. Like I just watched The Rookie again the other day, and it was a lot better than I remembered it being. A League of Their Own, I watched that the other day as well. It was really great as well. No, you've put me on the spot. I can't pick one. I like them all. I even like see any scene of baseball in a movie. I like it. I even like Twilight because it has a scene of baseball in it. So there's a clip you can use to advertise the podcast. Anytime baseball's mentioned.
I'm going to edit that. I'm going to edit it to I like Twilight.
I like Twilight. Probably one of my favourite scenes though is Leslie Nielsen. I think it might be in the second Naked Gun movie when he's just in the over-the-top umpiring. That's fantastic. I do like that.
Enrico Palazzo.
Yes.
Mark Donaldson told us a really great story on the show. Mark Donaldson from BT Sports Caps Off. He told us a great story about how he met Reggie Jackson, and was like, "So you were in London for the London series a couple of years ago?" He's like, "Yeah, I was. Yeah." He's like, "Did you get through all right?" And Reggie looked at him funny, like, "Why would I not?" sort of thing. And he's like, "Well, the last time you were here, I think you tried to kill the Queen," and that just popped Reggie completely. He was like, "Oh,
that's amazing."
So we've got a question from Geeks26 on Twitch, which you can see here. It's off topic, but I'd love to hear about Chris's speedrunning. This is another passion of yours, Chris, is gaming, and in particular speedrunning. Why don't you talk about your speedrunning and how you got into that and where you plan to take that?
Sure. So speedrunning, for people that maybe don't know, it's kind of the art of completing a game as fast as possible, whether that be just being really good at the game, finding glitches or game-breaking things that can see you completing Pokemon in 2 minutes, things like that. I've always been interested in watching it, and then, going back to when the lockdown first started, I'd just quit my job. College wasn't starting yet, and I was told you have to stay in the house for like the foreseeable future. So I thought, well, this is it. This is the best time I'm ever gonna have to spend 10 hours practicing every day to beat a half-hour game. And also, Streets of Rage 4 just came out at the same time, March 2019. So yeah, it all kind of came together, and I started speedrunning Streets of Rage, streaming it on Twitch, getting slightly better at it, getting slightly faster at it. Ended up getting numerous world records with different characters, different difficulties, and things like that. And it's a great pastime. It's a great hobby. I think a lot of maybe it goes back to why I enjoy editing. I don't mind sitting for hours, finessing little cuts and little tweaks here and there. I don't mind sitting for hours playing the same game over and over and over just to get better at it. Unfortunately, I'm on a bit of a hiatus from speedrunning just to focus on the studying and the filming, because it is a huge time commitment. Like, you look at some of these games and you see somebody complete Mario in 5 minutes, and you think, I've got 5 minutes, I could complete Mario. You don't see the thousands and thousands of hours they put into practice, So
Dead the Sean has asked you to tell us about the C. Kelly dunk.
The C. Kelly dunk.
What is the C. Kelly dunk?
By the way, shout out to Dead Sean, who had some 2-player records with me at one point.
Congratulations, guys.
So, probably the best Streets of Rage 4 runner, the Mighty Bill, plays this character called Cherry, right? And he turned the game inside out. He found every technique, every way to get seconds shaved off his time. I was playing about one day and found this trick where Cherry can immediately kill 2 enemies before they even appear on screen. And I messaged them and I said, I'm pretty sure you already know about this, but by the way, you can do this. And he didn't already know about it. And the trick got named after me, so it's called the C. Kelly dunk. You basically dunk 2 enemies off screen before they even get a chance to appear. And there's a big event on just now called Games Done Quick, which is a huge charity speedrunning event. They raise millions of dollars, and it's viewed by thousands and thousands of people. He had a run on it, and he shouted out my tricks. So that's my claim to fame in the speedrunning world.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. So before you go, I just have one more question. What's your favourite John McKellar memory on the field?
There's so many. I mean, gosh, this is a 45-minute long podcast, John. Come on.
John, my favourite memory with you is got nothing to do with being on the field. It's being on the bench and the passion. And
of course it is.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, the passion you have and try to keep everybody's chins up. And when we're not having a great time, reminding us all it's just a game, and when we are having a great time, just reminding us all that we're friends and just bringing that passion and love to the game. So. Just you, John, just you in general.
Great answer. I love it. That is everything from me, Jason.
No, it's good. We got to cover everything there. So yeah, let's call it a show.
Yeah, excellent. And can I just say, after asking for it for so long, I'm really pleased that I was the first guest on the YouTube stream. Something I've been asking for a while, and here we are.
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. You're going to have to go back and smash that like button on YouTube and watch it again. Watch it back and smash like and subscribe and all that other YouTube patter. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Chris. We'll have to get you back on to chat next year. Until then, just a thanks again for joining us.
Give us a shout where they can find you, so they can watch you see you beat these speed records and your YouTube channel there. Where can they find you? Yeah,
basically every single thing that I'm under is C Kelly Edits. So C for Chris, Kelly Edits, all the one word. You'll get my Twitch, you'll get my speedruns on there. I have 2 YouTube channels. So I've got one that has the documentary on it, that's just C Kelly Edits. And I've got the other one for my speedruns, that's C Kelly Edits Gaming. But if you just type in C Kelly Edits, it'll come up. Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, all of it C Kelly Edits. So that's where you go. Go watch the documentary. Subscribe to it as well if I can get that cheeky wee one in. I really need.
Hit the bell.
Yeah, if you enjoy the documentary, hit subscribe. That really helps a lot. And just thanks for having us on the podcast, guys.
Amazing, man. You can find us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/caps and pipes. Facebook.com/caps and pipes. That's correct.
Sure.
We're on Twitter. It's @caps and pipes. We're now on Twitch. It's ball caps and bagpipes on Twitch. And just search ball caps and bagpipes on YouTube because the URL is just a random string of letters and numbers. Sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, says Dead of the Show. Amazing.
Fantastic.
We are going to be back in time for spring training to commence season 4 of Ball Caps and Bagpipes. In the meantime, get in touch with your local baseball team. If you search Baseball Scotland on Facebook or Twitter, get in touch with Paul at Baseball Scotland. He'll put you in touch with the relevant team and their people. Even I've had contact from someone up in the Highlands up north who's looking for someone to throw the ball around. So if you're interested in that and you're from up north, fire a message to the Ball Caps and Bagpipes social media and we'll get you in touch. It's just amazing to see the growth of baseball just in the last couple of years. It looks like the pandemic hasn't done anything to dampen that, which has been great. You've got, the single A league that's now been has now been sort of instituted. So there's so many different opportunities to play baseball at so many different levels now in Scotland. So I know that Jason and we're both excited to cover it. And thanks again, Chris, for shedding, even more light on that with this documentary. It's an absolutely fantastic. I thought the finished product was absolutely fantastic. I've told you this previously. It was an absolute pleasure to be, able to be involved in that. So anything you need for us, you let us know. And here's to some future projects, and hopefully you'll manage to delve a wee bit deeper into the history of Scottish baseball in another project. And obviously, I think we're going to need to do an entire documentary on Aberdeen to make up for the last one.
I'm fully expecting a 9-part Ken Burns style series on Scottish baseball.
Just find me the hours in the day.
Thanks again, and thanks to everyone who's watched tonight. We will be the audio version will be out in the next day or two as well. But thanks so much to you, those of you who've joined us live on all 3 platforms, we'll have to look into the Facebook thing and find out why the comments haven't been shown. But it's been great to have so many people so engaged with the show. Again, a special shout out to Dead of the Sean, who's been very engaged as well. Yeah, we'll be back for season 4 very soon.
All right, guys. See you soon.
Bye. Good night.